word right here. Still plenty of big names that are left unsigned, or at least the deals haven't been agreed to yet. We'll see if anything happens here for the rest of the hour that we're with you, and there's a lot to get to. We're going to start with Adam Schefter and the latest news of the day. Quarterback move of the day, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones goes from Minnesota to Indianapolis and gets a one-year, $14 million deal with upside to $17 million. There was questions about whether he would surface in Minnesota or Indianapolis. He opted to compete against Anthony Richardson for the starting job rather than JJ McCarthy. He takes the deal with the Indianapolis Colts. Meanwhile, the former Dolphins standout safety Javon Holland gets a 3-year, $45.3 million deal done with the New York Giants, who lost Xavier McKinney in free agency last year, replaced him with Javon Holland this year, and now will team Holland up with their other cornerback acquisition, Paulson Adebo. As for cornerbacks, Christian Fulton is another free agent cornerback that landed a deal today, stays in the AFC West, going from the Chargers to the Chiefs on a 2-year, $20 million deal, including $15 million. The Chiefs trying to bolster their secondary, going out and getting an underrated player, keeping him in the division, knows the AFC West well. The Chiefs land Christian Fulton. And as for the former Commanders' two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, he gets a 2-year, $60 million deal done with the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings bolstering their defensive line. They're going to have interest in Javon Hargrave once he's officially released from the 49ers as well. So you're looking at a remade defensive line up front for the Minnesota Vikings, who have money to spend. And you take a look at the Vikings offseason moves, who they've re-signed, Aaron Jones and Byron Murphy and Theo Jackson. You look at their additions and you look at the departures, Sam Darnold, obviously Daniel Jones, Patrick Jones, the pass rusher. So they've lost some players. They've added some players. Like most teams in this league, they have more money to spend than most because JJ McCarthy's on a rookie contract.
That helps. You love when that happens. Adam Schefter, of course, with us for the entirety of NFL Live. Lewis Riddick, Dan Orlovsky. We got a lot to get to. We'll get Marcus Spears involved here as well. But let's start with what's going on there in Minnesota. Dan, they're trying to make some moves to bolster their O-line. Sounds like protecting JJ McCarthy if they can. Are you as confident in McCarthy as a starter as it seems like the Vikings are?
I'm more confident today than I have been since he's become a Minnesota Viking. And I think the Vikings have declared that over the past day or two. Hey, you're our guy. And here's I don't remember a young quarterback getting given the reins to go be the starter being in this good of a situation. Maybe Patrick the first year he took over, but I don't know if the defense was as strong as the one that we're going to see in Minnesota. With the addition of Fries and Ryan Kelly, we're talking about an offensive line that'll be top 3, top 4 offensive line in the NFL. We know the perimeter players are top 3 in the NFL. We know the scheme and play caller is as good as it gets in the NFL. And with some of the additions defensively, I fully expect JJ McCarthy to hit the ground running. And there should not be much of a drop-off from individual production at that position, offensive production, or team success. This is a fantastic situation.
You mentioned Ryan Kelly. He's going to come and play center as a veteran. They already had Garrett Bradbury, so a lot of people saying, well, what's going on? They're going to wind up trading Garrett Bradbury is what I would expect here. Garrett Bradbury gets traded. Ryan Kelly steps in the center, and he will be the guy to snap in the football, JJ McCarthy.
Could benefit from getting Bradbury. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, look, they have said that he has done, that being JJ McCarthy, absolutely everything right since the day he stepped foot in the building. It's really as simple as that. There's no reason for them to bet against him, doubt him, bring in competition for him, other than just to have some insurance in case something has gone wrong, could potentially go wrong with his rehab from the meniscus injury. Otherwise, this is their guy. They drafted him 10th overall. They saw what they needed to see in the offseason last year as a rookie. They saw what they needed to see when he played against the Las Vegas Raiders in the preseason in the brief amount of time, and he had that nice deep ball. To
Naylor?
Oh, who was it to? No, it was to Justin Jefferson. It was beautiful. He has everything that they're looking for. They're just trying to make sure it's all supported around him, and they're off and running.
I can't start the show without my wave. I hope all y'all doing well.
How we normally do. I see you swag with that beard all trimmed up. Okay.
Yeah, man. Dan and Lewis made great points, and Schefter alluded to it. We have a little bit of recall historically when a team is all in on their quarterback. This is familiar to what Philly did when they figured out Jalen Hurts was the guy. They actually did it when they thought Carson Wentz will usher them along. Brock Purdy in San Francisco, the move that they made to get Christian McCaffrey. This is the opportunity, obviously, for the Minnesota Vikings to not only show the confidence they have in their young quarterback, but to build a roster inside out. And y'all know I'm biased. The line of scrimmage changes games. I know we like to talk about wide receivers and quarterbacks, but then you mentioned it. Ryan Kelly, you get Darisaw back, obviously. You talk about Fries coming in. This is solidifying to this young man that we are going to put you in a position to be successful. And for as long as I've been on this show, and I've heard you and Lou say this as well, more young quarterbacks are burned by their football team than are lifted up and propped it up and put in a really good situation. And Minnesota not only is telling JJ McCarthy that, but they're also telling this fan base that they feel like the win opportunity is right now. Because when you start focusing on your offensive and defensive line, there is no more of a factor to me that you plan on winning immediately. And they made some game-changing type decisions up front.
When they drafted JJ McCarthy last year, everybody that pays attention to football said it was the best situation for a quarterback to go into in the NFL. It's better right now than it was the one he went into.
Better.
Since 2020, quarterback-wide receiver duos that yards per game lead the NFL since 2020. Number 1 is Kirk Cousins to Justin Jefferson at 99 yards a game. Number 6 is Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson at 90 yards a game. The reality is they have a Hall of Fame wide receiver and Hall of Fame trending coach, play caller. JJ McCarthy is going to be just fine.
That's amazing. I do think the situation matters a lot there, and it is one of the best, if not the best.
It's the best in the NFL for a quarterback.
So another departure today for the Vikings was their quarterback Daniel Jones that they had on their roster. He's going to go to Indy to compete with Anthony Richardson, and obviously felt like that was a better situation for him to potentially play. Makes sense. How do you see this one playing out, Dan?
Anthony Richardson, though, the Colts have told you in the last year, it's time. They benched you, Joe Flacco goes in, and now they brought in Daniel Jones for $14 million and upwards of $17 million. You are in the competition to prove that you belong in the NFL. And now I've loved Anthony since he came out of school. I've championed Anthony. I don't know if it's been the ideal setting that we thought it was going to be with Shane Steichen and the Colts, but this is the reality of the NFL. They've made it very clear to you that we need you to take the necessary steps, and they're bringing in a guy that will. Daniel Jones, from the time he gets in that building, Louis, Shefty, Laura, you know, Marcus, he's going to do all the right things, say all the right things, be a great teammate. This is now for Anthony the time to go. This is my job.
I'll say real quickly, there's no reason why Anthony should not win this job. There's no reason. You have the right mindset, you'll win the job. You have the skill set. Daniel Jones' skill set can't touch yours, and I have nothing but respect for him.
Yeah.
But he should not beat you out. This will be something we'll be watching very closely.
I was going to say that the way all of that unfolds is going to be fascinating, because you would expect Daniel Jones, as Dan brought out in this past hour, to be really prepared, look really good in camp, and all of that. All right, another trade happening today as we move through all the news by the Texans. Adam, what do we have there?
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles continue to suffer losses on their defense. Today they traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Houston Texans in return for the former first-round draft pick, the guard Kenyon Green, who now will enroll in Stoutland University to see if the Philadelphia Eagles can help turn around his career. But the Philadelphia Eagles made that big trade. And look at the offensive linemen that the Houston Texans have moved on from this offseason. They trade Laramie Tunsil. They trade Kenyon Green. They cut Shaq Mason. Clearly, it's an offensive line that struggled and underperformed last year. And the Texans are making changes, including getting a deal done, an agreement done with Laken Tomlinson, who agrees on a one-year deal with going to Houston as his newest stop. He's bounced around the NFL. The Texans believe he's going to help improve that offensive line that we talked about struggling last year. Laken Tomlinson, the newest Houston Texans offensive lineman.
Let's dive in a little bit more on the Texans, okay? Because they are going to look to rebuild that O-line that just really couldn't protect C.J. Stroud last season. They gave up 54 sacks, tied for the third most in the NFL, and they allowed the fourth highest pressure rate. Their running backs didn't have it easy either, as their run block win rate ranked second to last in the NFL. Marcus, what do you make of these moves by Houston?
I think it's very interesting. I think the draft is going to be big for them, obviously, offensive line-wise. But when you think about, especially getting rid of Laramie Tunsil, but the interior of this offensive line facilitated in C.J. Stroud taking a step back as a quarterback. We saw games this year where he was more concerned with interior pressure than he was pushing the football down the field or playing with rhythm and timing. And we know that to be true about C.J. Stroud. So this Laken Tomlinson move is one of those moves that they make. Kenyon is moving on, obviously going and trying to revive what he was drafted to be. But more importantly, the interior is the reason for this offseason. They focused on it. I'm super interested in the draft, how O-line heavy the Houston Texans will be.
Yeah, look, there are some good players in this draft that are both tackles by trade, and maybe a guy like Gray Zabel from North Dakota State, who's a guy who was a tackle in college, who has moved inside the guard and also plays center. Look, they have to have their eyes on some people here. You cannot just piecemeal this together and think it's going to get better. You have to bring quality talent in here to protect your quarterback and get yourself back on track. And I would expect them to be very active in the draft and really stockpiling some guys that have high upside, and then they can take them to their own version of Stoutland U, hopefully down there, and get this unit back on track.
You think they can draft 2 starters in the first couple